Roll call.
Parker. Here. Miscelinich.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Zittergruen.
Here.
Chisel.
Here.
Neal.
Here.
Is there anybody who wishes to approach the council on something that's not on the agenda? Hearing seen none. Northeast Iowa Regional Housing Trust Fund, Michelle Howe, Upper Explorerland Regional Planning Commission. Hmm. Hmm.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. So I drive back to Lansing tonight. Well, my name is Chris.
Can you take the mic?
Sure. My name is Chris Trundle. I'm the housing planner for Upper Explorer Land. So my job is to do the Northeast Iowa Regional Housing Trust Fund along with a number of other programs to which I administer there. You're receiving two different things, handouts here. One is a single piece of paper that's highlighted, and the other one is a packet. So I am going to take and move forth with the packet at every year. So I'll present this as we go on. The other one is the request letter. We sent out a request letter. I want to say it was last October. I'm sure you've probably seen it. This is a second request letter, being that we have need to get our grant written for the next go around for the Regional Housing Trust Fund. With that being said, the most important piece on the flyer that's got the highlight on is simply that Decorah has definitely utilized funding through the Northeast Iowa Housing Trust Fund over the last 3-4 years on a number of different avenues. And I just totaled up here this afternoon, just to double check it. And it looks like over the last 3 years, $165,649.90. We've had one donation in the last 3 years, and that was for $8,000. So if you look at your return on investment, you're a little over 1,000%. So congratulations to you guys for that. With that being said, also on that form, what I'm looking for is to get our funding match for this year, along with the additional 2 years. I think it's going to make it easier for budgeting for cities and counties and numerous other entities that assist with this. So with that being said, one project is $12,500. So you have an understanding. So if you can just break that down, you know, that's about, 14 projects roughly. It's actually a few more because some were less, some were a little more with regards to cost. So it's been a tremendous amount of input and back in just to Decorah alone. Total with Winneshiek County is also tremendous. I mean, it's been a lot, and you'll see that in the packet as we go through that. With that being said, it also did bring a few residents back up from having back taxes due to both the city and the county, along with getting their insurances back on their homes. So it really has been a really good program for the down payment assistance piece of it. We've gotten, I think, 2 or 3 new teachers into homes that are teaching in the schools here. I've been working a lot with Decorah Bank and Trust here in town and also Current Brothers. So it's been really well with working with them. With regards to the repairs, there's been everything and anything underneath the books with regards to that. A lot of roofs this year. So I've been keeping Steve at Lifetime pretty busy. I can with different things here and there. So we can move on to kind of the overview of what had been done. So both years kind of in 23 and 24 compare very much for what had been done. Down payment assistance programs are definitely moving forward pretty strongly, and it's getting people that are, you know, younger folks, like I said, a lot of teachers into these homes, and then those are also getting repaired and fixed up and looking good. So, which is a big thing. So in 2024, you can see a breakout. So if you start opening up your packet there, you can see a breakout of county usages. It's pretty impressive what the numbers were. Winnebago County as a whole for this year was down a little bit from past years, but past years they were much higher. So it's, that's going to fluctuate from year to year. So with that being said, you can see the big green part down here, and this is why I'm here tonight. One of the reasons anyways is to explain, if you don't understand how we receive the money, we have to have local match in order to receive the full funding for the Housing Trust Fund, which comes from the state. And the green part on that last pie chart there is the state matching money. And then our part of it, the 5 counties, is that little bit that's in the different colors up there. As you can see, every county gives it a little bit differently. This year, I've changed it up. I'm on about 1.5 years now, and I want to take it into a different approach with regards to the fundraising. So to make this easier, not only, like I said, for our entities that, are supporting this program, but also others. Before we move on, just so you have an understanding of the Housing Trust Fund, if you don't, the Housing Trust Fund does down payment assistance and repair. In doing so, we do mortgages that go out. Some of them are forgivable. John here is our attorney, so we have been going through, and I think we got things buttoned up pretty well now. But with that being said, both programs, whether it's forgivable or not, they are interest bearing, so people have to live in their home for 5 years. Some of those loans, though, the ones that either at 0%, 1%, or 2% have a payback. And you'll see further on down the road, we have a revolving loan fund. So since the inception of this program here, there's been money that's been accruing. It's not, in the millions of dollars by any means, but, it's got enough in there to help assist with getting other programs available for repairs or home buying. And you'll see that here coming up shortly. So the Housing Trust Fund is kind of like the cornerstone program of the entire what I do anyways, and how things come about. There's multiple uses with that revolving loan fund, which then go into, like I said, other programs. So some of the other programs which we have, if you can flip over, I can just explain it as we go, but we had IFA repair. So Iowa Finance Authority had a repair program, which funneled down from the federal government this last year. And with that being said, I kind of, what I do is find the best ways to meet the needs of our population. And in doing so, I look for alleyways to make it easier so we can get more money from whatever source that's coming from. The state itself received $11 million this last year for this program. And because of how I implemented it, we got 1.1 million of that just in our 5 counties alone. So it's pretty impressive that we got that amount just for that program there. The home buyer program is a pilot for us. It's been a while since we've had one. So we were able to do 6 homes this year. Much of those homes were in other counties, but working with Decorah Bank and Trust and a few of the other entities around, that's where the actual money started and went to when it's said and done. So the second pie chart down there where it shows IFA home buyer, it's kind of deceiving because Winnebago doesn't show much, of anything on that one. But almost half of what had been spent out this last year came and was sourced here in town directly. So then we can move on to other parts of this. So as I talked about before, the money that's accrued back with either payments or interest goes into a revolving loan fund, which then goes towards housing studies. I'm sure you guys have utilized them in the past. Some of the housing studies for maybe looking at different projects that you have going with grants. We also have demolition projects, so nuisance housing that needs to be tore down for new homes to go onto it. We also provide funding for that, up to $10,000 for each tear down. There's emergency funding if there's something, with the homeowner like a sewer or water that nobody ever really knows. Anyways, so there's a number of other things. And then we also use this for matching money because we had to have matching money for the repair program, matching money for the home buyer program. And this coming year, it looks like we're going to be probably getting some more additional on top of the Housing Trust Fund, which will draw from that also. So there's a lot of really good opportunity depending on what's out there for both state and federal money. So because of that. So you could have the overall housing program funding spent in 2024, which you can see is a good chunk of money. And then I would say probably almost, probably about half of that usually goes in at least. So this last year, it was 207,000, most of that, like I said, half of it, if not more, gone into here. And Origin money, like I said, with the home buyer, almost half of that also. So, the numbers don't completely tell the truth with regards to, where the money was sourced and where it came from. So, so you actually are doing much better than what this shows. So, and you guys can ask questions as we go through this, as much or as little as you like. And then, on the very last page, it shows local match, kind of does a breakdown of what's what, per county. Last year, as you can see, Winnebago County as a whole, $7,500, total in comparison to the rest of the counties. I'll tell you, a lot of my cities and almost all the counties now are moving up to that one level or very close to it, and they are committing for the 3 years. So something to think about. I know that as a city, you hadn't donated last year, and I believe in 23 you did one for 8,000. So just consider that. This is always shown out there for presentations and stuff like that. So just so you know. So you're not surprised if you see it out and about. All in all, though, the numbers for this are so much bigger than what it truly is, because you start throwing in, the lawyers for the down payment assistance, the banks, and all it takes to put those mortgages and everything together, the repair programs, just the complete amount of people that are being hired for, repair programs. I mean, I don't know how many crews like Steve has done Lifetime and some of the others have in terms of contractors in the area, but it's a lot. From my understanding, in the past years, it's been really difficult to get contractors on board. And since I've been on, I haven't really struggled with that. I've worked pretty good, and we've got over 100 now that are on board just within our area. And I would say between Winnebago and Elm-McKee, that's probably where the vast majority of them are coming from. So much of which out of Decorah here. So any questions? I know it's a lot to take in. There's a lot of information here. I can answer questions if you have questions afterwards, but please consider, I don't know if you, what, or if you've even budgeted for this year, but like I said, you're continuing to grow. And there is a tremendous amount of money that is being put into the community, and growth is continue. I get phone calls daily, at least 3, 4, 5 that are inquiring. And I'd say probably 2 or 3 of them are from the Decorah area. So,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just a lot of your sort of input numbers are broken down by county. Of course, we're a municipality sitting here. Do you have data on how other communities, other cities in this region give? I mean, it's broken down by county. but-
Yep. No, that's a great question. I get that every time. It's all over the board. So what I'm focusing on are the bigger cities that use, a vast majority of the finances for programming. So Decorah being one of which, Old Wine being one, Walk On, so on and so forth, along with, hitting the counties up as much as I can. And then now I'm also requesting banks, to throw in some too for, the down payment assistance. So we're kind of all having a heavy lift. So this next year, we're dropping down to 75% is what the state's going to fund us versus 77. So, but they're also increasing the amount of funding available for projects. So that's good and bad, kind of all at the same time. In order to get all that money, we have to have the match for that money. And like I said, right now, if I run the numbers, without Decorah in there as one of these, we're probably right in the ballpark of about $8,000 to $10,000 short. It's really all kind of up in the air. But what I'm looking for is that sustainability piece moving forward, trying to get as close as we can to that just one project level, and doing it over a 3-year period. And as you guys want. I'll come in and, like I said, update you where things are at. I would say, as a city though, you guys have tremendous opportunity, because I'm sure with the different, like the city manager here and maybe some of the people that are out on the street working stuff, you know these homes and you can be your best advocate to say, hey, you know, we got this program, why don't you look into it to get your home fixed and, you know, get that roof on. And, you know, some of the contractors are doing exactly that. They send them my way first, and the banks are doing the same thing. So it's really, really a great program. And like I said, it's a cornerstone of all these other ones that even add on and make it so much bigger. So it's really good. Yeah.
I have a question, but this is really actually for Travis. So how is that an agenda item? I mean,
So as far as fiscal 24 is concerned, it was a budgeted amount for, or 25, excuse me. We're in fiscal 25. Was 12,500. Since it was included in the budget, once October rolls and we get that that larger property tax revenue payment from the county, then we typically make those allocations, since they're already included and approved by council in the budget.
so from what I'm understanding is you have the documentation you need for your September 23rd.
As of right now, I do not.
So we
I
need-
don't know if we've received a letter, a pledge letter yet, but that doesn't mean that maybe you won't do
So
that.
we.
Maybe
need
not a formal pledge letter, other than us emailing Rochelle and saying, yep, we got it in the budget.
Okay, so
Email that to me. She sometimes forgets.
And
We-
you
we
actually,
have a-
you had the
My
amount,
contact info is right on here.
and you had emailed her the amount that we have committed for 2025.
So, well, thank you. And like I said, any questions that you have, please reach out. I'd probably be the one to talk to unless it's something a little different outside of the housing. But again, you're your biggest and best advocate for this. I can't really go out and push, you know, say, boy, that home really needs a roof. I'm gonna go talk to them. I can't do that, but you can. And then they can come my way, and hopefully we can, get a lot more done. Like I said, it's a really good program, and I have not seen it abused at all. I'm pretty tough that way, so I don't let that happen. Don't have a choice, but go ahead.
no, I was just gonna thank you. I mean, it is a fantastic program, and we talk a lot about housing and always this idea of building, but it's also taking care of what we have and being able to create affordable housing and letting people have the resources that they need. So thank you.
Yeah, well, Decorah is like a second home to me. Half of my family's here, so I love working here. So thank you.
Yeah, I was just gonna echo the same thing. I mean, housing is such an important thing for us everywhere nowadays that, and you guys do a wonderful service in regards to that issue, so. appreciate what
And
you
if
guys
you ever
do.
hear anything or see anything, you know, where improvement can be made, or you have some other ideas or funding sources that look at, reach out, and that'd be good to know. So,
Thanks.
all right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
night.
Thank you so much. Consent agenda.
Item A, minutes of the September 3rd, 2024 council meeting. B, claims. C, resolution setting public hearing on amending Title 17 zoning of the Decorah Municipal Code regarding canned redemption centers as principal permitted uses. D, Decorah 2024 stormwater improvements project change order number 1, final project quantity adjustments. E, Decorah 2024 stormwater improvements project pay application number 2, finals. F, resolution approving Decorah 2024 stormwater improvements project as complete. G, amendment for Class C retail alcohol license Blazing Star. H, renewal of Class C retail alcohol license with outdoor service JT Haymarket LLC. I, renewal of Class E retail alcohol license with outdoor service and catering Toppling Goliath. J, renewal of Class E retail alcohol license Decorah Mart.
Consent agenda is presented.
I'll second.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Ms. Lineage. Further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Chisel.
Aye.
Miss Linich.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Conduct public hearing on the proposed amendment to the Central Business District Urban Renewal Area and Urban Renewal Plan. Can you give background on that, please?
Sure, so I'll give background. The next four items of the, in the, excuse me, on the agenda all deal with each other, so a lot of it's gonna be overlapping background. So public hearing is required by state law before the city can establish or amend an urban renewal area. P and Z has reviewed the proposed amendment and found it in line with the city's comprehensive plan. The minutes, once adopted, will be entered as part of this public hearing. Notice was sent to Decorah Schools and Winship County Board of Supervisors for a consultation meeting that was held on Monday, September 2nd in the council chambers, of which there were no attendees. There have been no written comments or objections received at this time.
I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this item? Hearing seen none, I'll close public hearing. Conduct resolution to declare necessity and establish an urban renewal area pursuant to section 403.4 of the Code of Iowa and approve urban renewal plan amendment for the Central Business District Urban Renewal Area.
Okay, so again, there's multiple steps to the establishment of an urban renewal area. The resolution here approves the plan, which in this amendment is proposing to do two things. One, it takes the existing C3 urban renewal area, which is just a few small square blocks around Fairway, and was established based on that Fairway relocation to incentivize that project. It would expand the area to include all of the C3 district or zoning C3. And then it also adds two proposed projects. One includes the development incentives for the Annenson project, which is redevelopment of buildings at 105, 107, and 109 East Water Street to create 10 upper story residential units. And that has a tax rebate incentive not to exceed 350,000. And the second project is the creation of an economic development grant program in the C3 district, which would not exceed 250,000 through fiscal year 29. Now, these are, if council adopts, this creates the plan, but it doesn't create the programs nor obligate the city to the incentives, projects listed in the urban renewal plan. Those are the further steps, which agenda item 9 is setting a public hearing on proposed development agreement. So that's the separate action that has to be taken, but it can't be done unless it's already included in the plan.
So this just lays the groundwork for that to happen?
Correct.
Pretty much, okay.
I'll make a motion to declare the necessity and establish an urban renewal area.
Second.
Motion made by Neal, seconded by Olson. Any further discussion? Hearing seen none. Roll call.
Neil,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Miscelinich,
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Chisel,
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion carried. Considering ordinance providing for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the September 2024 addition to the Central Business District, first reading.
So this
This
is essentially the final step in the plan's creation. It establishes the TIF district as a taxing entity and creates essentially the tax border around the C3 district. Again, for everyone's sake, not all property tax levies are TIF eligible levies. So exempt from that are the schools instructional support levy, the school's Pebble fund, as well as everybody's debt service levy. So the city, county, school, we all have that live in the city of Decorah, we have a cumulative property tax rate. And of that, those levies I just mentioned are all exempt from TIF capture.
I've just got a question. Given that the title of the ordinance talks about the division of taxes levied in the September addition to the CBD, I just want to make sure that this ordinance would also cover the extant CBD, the blocks around Fairway. Is that correct?
Correct.
I just don't want to carve that out, and I'm making sure that this isn't carving that out as a separate thing, is it?
No, this is creating the taxable district, extending it outside of the existing one that's just in a few square blocks around Fairway, extending to all of the C3 zoning districts.
So there is already ordinance providing for the division of taxes on the current.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to consider, or whoops, sorry, I'm scroll now. No, I lost myself here. Am I going to say it right? Consider resolution to declare necessity and establish an urban renewal area. It says
Sure.
right.
We're on 8.
12, aren't we on 12? 8. Oh, sorry, I was reading the next one. Consider an ordinance providing that for the division of taxes levied on taxable property in the September 2024 edition.
You're moving the ordinance?
Yes.
I second.
Motion made by Neil, seconded by Zittergruen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Neil,
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Miscellaneous.
Aye.
Motion carried. That's the first reading. Consider resolution setting a public hearing on proposed development agreement with Decorah Real Estate Fund LP, including annual appropriation tax increment payments.
Okay, again, as noted in previous background, this is, again, just establishing the public hearing. This does not approve the development agreement. That project, 105, 107, and 109 East Water Street, to create 10 upper story residential units for a tax rebate incentive not to exceed 350,000.
Parker moves to consider resolution setting a public hearing on proposed development agreement with Decorah Real Estate Fund LP, including annual appropriation tax increment payments.
Second.
Seconded, Christian. Motion made by Parker, seconded by Olson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Parker,
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Zittergruen,
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Neil,
Aye.
Miscellaneous.
Aye.
Motion carried. Conduct public hearing on the proposed designation of the Decorah East Side Residential Urban Renewal Area and Urban Renewal Plan.
Okay, similar to the previous series of agenda items, same thing here. This is a public hearing that has some overlap to the next 3 agenda items. This proposed urban renewal plan is a new urban renewal plan, not an amendment. So the plan includes the area that would plan to be future plat of High Point East Edition, fourth edition. So this is area currently owned by Mike Kelly, that's east of Dabden Road in the High Point East subdivision. It is, if you're all familiar with High Point East, the vast majority of it is actually in the county. This is the section east of Dabden and north of the highway is actually in the city limits. So this is eligible for the city's TIF participation. The plan includes one project, which would be providing an economic development incentive in the form of tax rebates. This initial dollar amount, it's a little misleading and I'll elaborate. So it does say not to exceed $758,160. However, this being a market rate TIF, the city has to take the equivalent of the population of the city of Decorah that is considered low, moderate income, and we have to pull that off the top as soon as it's collected. And that is 33%. We've got to take 33% of that off, and it can only be used for future projects that benefit individuals of a low, moderate income. That leaves the remainder of 560,000 to the developer, which this is again a not to exceed amount and is meant to cover the installation of publicly owned infrastructure. So water main, sewer, sanitary sewer main, stormwater, streets, street lighting that would create additional residential lots in the area.
You know how many lots we're talking?
Yeah, so the first phase, assuming the preliminary discussions come through, the first phase would be 8 single-family residential lots and 2 multifamily that anticipate around 4, like a fourplex. Yep,
Will these be high density lots? I mean, not high density, but high, I mean, how big are the lots, I guess is what I want to say.
they haven't submitted a formal site plan yet, so I can't confirm, but they're not going to be, if you're looking at the Downing edition for comparison, those are going to be considerably larger than what High Point East, 4th edition are proposed. They're similar size to the rest of High Point East 1 through 3.
The rebate is for the installation of infrastructure.
Correct.
Okay.
I anticipate, so the development agreement that's proposed, the public hearing to be set on, should council approve this resolution later. The proposed development agreement as drafted is very similar to what the city adopted with the VA clinic, where the rebates are covering just the cost of the infrastructure. And so that's again why it's a not to exceed. So let's say the price of streets dips, which I certainly hope it does, but I don't anticipate that. And the project costs are less, that's the amount of rebates you'd get. And this is, so rebates, the way they work, all the property owners that are part of this development will pay their taxes just like everybody else in Decorah. Those that are TIF eligible then are captured and then rebated back to the developer for the cost of the infrastructure. Otherwise, the house wouldn't exist, right? So it doesn't impact the rest of Decorah's levies, essentially. And if this subdivision happens and no homes are built on it, this has a 10-year time limit on it. So if no homes are built on it within 10 years, that rebate amount is 0 because it's only on the TIF revenues from that TIF district.
So even if you put in all the infrastructure.
Correct. Even if he put in all the infrastructure, but he didn't sell a single lot, he wouldn't get a dime back.
And we're talking, you said 8 single-family homes for this tranche, this group, plus a two multifamily
2 multifamily lots, correct.
being how fourplexes, duplexes,
4plex is what's expected on each.
16.
16, okay.
The whole area out there, because so the area this is going to encompass is essentially a first phase of High Point East 4th edition, and then there'll be a High Point East 5th. That'll then be a potential follow-up build out. Because again, these have a 10-year time limit on TIF capture. So if he were to build out the entire phase 1 and 2 and open up 16 residential plus 4 multifamily, his timer starts on all of them right away. And so he'd have to build twice as fast to make sure he recovers that investment.
And just to clarify, is this the area that sits between like where High Point East is built to at this point in time in the business park? Is that kind of where that sits?
That's where it
Yeah,
sits, but it
yeah,
doesn't
right.
extend all the way to the business
Right,
park,
right.
correct?
Triangle, isn't it right between Dabden, East Ridge and Highway 9?
Correct.
I'd move for approval.
Second?
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Olson. Any other discussion, questions?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
would
just,
say we're still in the public hearing, just so
oh,
everyone.
thank you.
I thought we were.
Sorry,
I thought we-
that's my fault.
We got into
Yeah.
the,
My fault.
okay.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. How about if I open the public hearing? Is there anybody who wishes to speak to this item? Hearing none, I'll close the public hearing. Okay, now we're on. Now do they have to make their motion again?
Yes.
Okay,
So made.
Second?
okay, motion made by Chisel, seconded by Olson. Any further discussion?
have we done, TIF rebates for infrastructure for single family build outs historically? I mean, is this how the other High Point East streets were developed?
High Point East 4 is all county, or excuse me, everything but High Point East 4 would be in the county. So there was no city participation there. This is a relatively new change from council to pivot towards urban renewal as opposed to revitalization. If council recalls, Decorah used to have, and I want to point out, state law change also made it that we can't do it anymore, but it used to be 100% of property taxes were abated for 5 years for all new residential. And so it was meant to incentivize the owner of the property as opposed to the person putting in the infrastructure. This urban renewal is an incentive to place infrastructure as opposed to build the homes.
Right, so this is kind of a departure from precedent, in terms of the city getting involved in actually rebating the cost of the infrastructure. I think that would be fairly new. Is that
We've done it before.
where?
Not Downing, no, down by the greenhouse. Back behind
Serenity.
Riley Dike.
Those apartments?
Well, there's houses back there too, condos. And that was a rebatable TIF for the developer as he put them in.
Is that for Tucker?
Tucker, there you go.
But did we rebate the infrastructure or did they put the infrastructure in and we rebated the housing?
I guess my wider point for, for
It's a
discussion's sake,
rebatable.
my wider point for discussion's sake is that this TIF incentive works out to 47,000 per housing unit, which is quite a bit more than probably what on average we incentivize new housing construction under our old model, where we simply forgave property tax. I know I'm using the wrong words, Travis, but let's say that we were forgiving $5,000 per year on a new piece of construction and property taxes. That's 25,000. So this is almost twice that in terms of what we're considering incentivizing for market rate new development. I just want to make sure that, one of our jobs up here is to make sure that that these homes wouldn't be built otherwise, or that this is kind of an essential piece. We just passed an incentive for $35,000 per unit to go into our town in the Onset building. And this is a bigger incentive for properties that actually will contribute less to our tax base. There'll be greater net takers in terms of city goods and services, because it costs more money to maintain a new road and plow a new road than it does to maintain and plow existing roads. And so I want to be really judicious about this and make sure that we're doing the math. I mean, do we know the anticipated tax revenue that these 16 properties would give us once we've rebated $750,000 in TIF to the developer? Do we have an estimate for what the road is going to cost to maintain per year and how long it's going to last? I personally, before we have to start spending money on replacing it, you know, I worry that if we proceed with this new way of, providing infrastructure to spread out styles of development, we're going to end up incentivizing things that make Decorah fiscally less solvent over the next generation. I mean, then the sort of the bad scenario would be, if we did something like this and then 10 years after we finally, started collecting taxes that we could use to provide the services that these new homes are consuming. Well, 10 years after that, the road has potholes and needs to be replaced, and we end up, obviously these are houses for people to live in and we need them. I just want to make sure that we're building our city out in a way that's fiscally responsible. And I'm not sure if I have enough information to determine that. I'm curious if other council members feel like there's more information we could have that would help us make that decision.
I think I agree. I mean, my simpler question was, do we do this type of agreement with, like, do we do this with Mossman? Do we do, like, whenever a developer comes in and they want to do housing in this magnitude, have we given such an incentive?
With some, the city has actually gone even further and actually borne some of the costs for extending utilities. The rationale behind going this route with the urban renewal is it puts all the onus on the developer. So my point, going back to my point before that, if all this infrastructure goes in and there's no development, there's one house built on the end of it and that's it, the rest of it is all yard, there's no rebate back other than on that one house. And so to Stephen's point of, if that one house is only paying $6,000-7,000 a year, of which roughly $32 out of 37 is TIF eligible, they're getting $5,000 to $6,000 a year back in TIF rebates as the developer. Over 10 years, that's 50 to 60,000 out of 56 or $560,000 in estimated infrastructure costs.
So the reason the exceed is so high, I mean, that's what it is. Why is this exceed so high? Is because if you built extraordinarily expensive homes. No?
That's the infrastructure costs.
Okay. But at the tax, but he couldn't, I thought he can't get the TIF money, or he can't get, not the TIF money, he can't get that. It comes from the tax base of the houses that he's building.
Correct.
So how does that then cover the infrastructure? I guess I'm not following that.
So I think I know what you're getting at. It's the lesser of the two. So if he only builds, again, one house at the end of it, and that's it, there's only $50,000 to $60,000 that he'll get back in the form of a tax rebate over that 10-year period. And that's it. If it's 10 single-family units plus the 2 multifamily units are built out in year 1, and now we've got buildings paying let's use 75,000 for round figuring. If he's got a total of 75,000 in property taxes being paid in that subdivision, because it was all built out in year 1, times 10 is 750,000. He only gets back 560. And actually he wouldn't even get that because we got to subtract off 33% for TIF LMI.
What would it cost him to put the infrastructure in?
It's assumed, or it's estimated around 560.
560.
Yep. Which is not that crazy. I just did that Iowa Public Radio interview, and 80,000 per lot is a fairly common current day construction costs.
Wasn't the TIF LMI fund already deducted off that 758 to get 560?
Correct. So if 750,000 is collected, that's less than that 768. So he'd be just shy of the full 560 because you gotta take 33% off of the 750,000.
And I guess, you know, when you're talking about that $560,000 number, I just want to caution us not to think, oh, well, as long as we're collecting that much in new taxes, we're going to at least break even. I mean, I know that's the temptation, but don't forget, we're also building a, you know, $750,000 piece of infrastructure that we have to start taking care of and committing to replacing in perpetuity. And I just want to make sure that's accounted for in our decision making too. A lot of times, I don't think that we account for that. You know, developers who propose things like this to cities will often say you can assume 4% depreciation. You know, 4% of $250,000, you know, dollars is like, it's a lot. I'm not going to do the math in my head, but you know, we can't, if we spend the tax money rebating it to the developer to pay for the infrastructure they're putting in, then when we need to take care of and replace the road, we haven't collected enough tax money to pay for that. I just want to just kind of, I'd like to do more math than what we're doing here.
Is this
Any
time
other-
sensitive?
Pardon?
Is this time sensitive?
To some degree, the developer would like to break ground at least this fall.
Anybody else on council have concerns?
We're already out there maintaining roads.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Just to say that my plan is to vote no, but I could be swayed to a yes vote if I had, you know, more time, more information than what we have.
Okay, roll call?
Chisel,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Neal,
It'll be third. Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Miscelinich,
Aye.
Zittergruck.
No.
Motion carried. Consider an ordinance providing for the division of tax levied on taxable property in the Decorah East Side Residential Urban Renewal Area pursuant to sections 403.1 of the Code of Iowa. First reading.
Okay, similar procedurally, the ordinance portion is what creates the taxing district of which those tax revenues are, those TIF revenues are captured from.
I'd move to approve the first reading.
Second.
Motion made to approve by Chisel, seconded by Neal. Discussion?
I'll just say this now so I don't have to say it later. And while we're on the subject, I think that that these hard decisions and doing, you know, trying to do this math to make sure that we're not just developing housing, but doing so in a way that doesn't eventually bankrupt the city. I think that's one of the most important jobs that we have as a council. It's very, you know, things seem pretty easy when you're first building them and the numbers work. And it's like, oh, we have free money because we're going to have this additional tax revenue coming in. But when you make decisions like that over and over and over without doing the math on the long-term budgetary implications of these decisions, you know, eventually you end up having to have hard decisions about staff that, you know, cuts that you have to make to the city's budget and which roads can we no longer afford to maintain to a good standard. I think this is another place that brings into stark relief for me the need for us to look seriously at our subdivision ordinance, because needing to spend $750,000 to build a pretty short street to service 16 housing units doesn't feel very sustainable to me. Just to take care of that, you know, uses the tax revenue of half or more of those housing units, which means the other half have to pay for all of the other services the city's providing, and the roads that they're driving to get everywhere else they're going to, and the parking that's there when they get there. I think we need to be really thoughtful about things like these. One way that we could make this cheaper is by making it cheaper for developers to build new housing, by not requiring roads as wide as we require, by not requiring our lot sizes to be the size that we require them to be, by not requiring streetlights in areas that that don't need them for safety's sake. And I think that those are things, maybe this isn't the right time to have this particular conversation, but it brings into relief the need for us to keep having conversations about how to make development more affordable and housing cheaper in this community. This to me doesn't seem like the way to do it.
Paul?
Jizzle,
Aye.
Neil,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Olson,
Aye.
Sittergren.
No.
Motion carried. Consider resolution setting a public hearing to approve a development agreement with High Point East LLC, including annual appropriation tax increment payments.
So I have a
Is
question
that
about,
correct? It's number 13, right?
yeah, okay, so
Okay.
this is where I had a question, so, and I probably should have asked it before, but 11 established the urban renewal area, 12 established a tax finance,
Okay. That's
13
right.
is now about the development agreement that we have. So that really is about the funding.
Correct.
Okay,
You
so-
can't do 13. You can't even set the public hearing without 11 first being adopted. 12 creates the tax layer, so that can come later.
So our-
13 is the actual development agreement with the developer.
okay, so the reason that I voted yes on 11-13, because I think we can create the area. But to me, what Steve, you're alluding to is this development agreement and what that looks like. So I guess my thought is, I mean, we can have the public hearing, but I do wonder if the infrastructure only costs $560,000 to put it in, can't we slowly put in infrastructure? I mean, if we're essentially, you didn't like that idea.
Sorry.
I mean, this 758, it seems really high. I don't even know. It's a perspective to me that is like, yeah, that's a lot of tax money and it'll take a long time to pay that back.
So, to answer the question on, especially on the utility side, so water, sewer, stormwater, arguably, those three are enterprise funds. They're all supposed to be financed through their own revenue streams. That's why we have water rates and sewer rates. If the water and sewer fund were used to provide the extensions instead of using the property tax revenues, we're then using the revenues from the existing users to create an extension of that utility that benefits the developer and benefits the homeowner by keeping low infrastructure costs. On the, you talk about using city funds to extend other infrastructure like streets, street lighting, if we want to do street lighting. We don't have to, that's not a requirement. Our subdivision requires it shown if they're gonna do it. So if we were to place streets, we've got about 1.5 million in local option sales tax that we use for street repairs on an annual basis. That's going to then defer any spent on that of existing, and it would allocate it again towards creation of additional value to the developer. It's gonna, I'm trying to think the most appropriate way to say, it's gonna shift the payment on the infrastructure away from the developer and create additional benefit to them.
And this piece is just setting a public hearing, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I'd move to set the public hearing for October 21st.
Second.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Olson for setting the public hearing. Further discussion?
And just to clarify the mayor's question about setting the public hearing, it's setting a public hearing on the development agreement as drafted. Right, I mean, so that's the sort of the public hearing we're talking about. If we wanted to change the development agreement, we would do that now prior to setting the public hearing, right? Is that,
Or you hold a public hearing, then you want to change it, set a new public hearing, you can do that as well.
Based on what you hear at the public.
Correct.
Yeah.
But if council is, majority doesn't want to see this and wants changed, that's agreed. You change it now, set the public hearing. If you know now that you're not going to approve this, set a different public hearing.
But voted in the last one, thinking that that's what they were voting for, and that was,
Well, and again, the plan is a not to exceed.
Right.
So the development agreement can be any number less than that. The plan sets the maximum benefits and the area.
would the council have an appetite for adjusting the development agreement to be in line with our historical pattern of subsidizing new houses to the tune of about 5 years worth of property tax rebate? I mean, this is closer to 10 than to 5. Does that make sense what I'm saying? I want to make sure everyone understands what I'm saying, that,
So you're saying you basically cut that amount in half approximately?
well,
That amount would be-
I don't want to necessarily come up with a number by committee or anything, but if we looked at the average anticipated property tax revenue that would be taking or collecting on these properties, historically, we've rebated 5 years worth to incentivize new construction. Maybe we could come up with that and make that the not to exceed number. Does that, Travis, you
If-
want to say something? Go ahead.
If I might pose something, so abatement, which is what historically the city has been done, incentivizes again the individual house construction. And so that is, we have infrastructure, we need homes on existing infrastructure. That's the strategy behind abatement. Now, on the urban renewal, what's posed here isn't just encouraging new housing growth on existing infrastructure. This is incentivizing additional infrastructure, which I get to your point, creates additional future costs. But if we don't have those areas that we can have great impact on infill, which maybe in the near future, we do have some, but still going to create additional public infrastructure needs. This incentivizes the creation of additional lots so that houses can be built. You understand what I'm saying? The difference between abatement is you're incentivizing the house, and the rebate is you're incentivizing the lot creation.
So in our past lot creating public infrastructure developments, how has the city assisted developers? So I'm thinking Burning, Mossman, Downing. Well, Downing, we didn't, right? We just annexed.
There's a development agreement that's like 12 phases and it terrible.
well, I know the council have had the discussion previously and decided it was, at that time, decided it was advantageous to go this route.
So
That was commercial.
in some, it's actually been, so on the residential side, it's actually been this extended infrastructure at its cost.
That's what.
Could
the
you say
city-
that again, Travis?
So in some instances, in the past, the city has extended that infrastructure at its cost, which again is our users and existing property tax base.
Out of curiosity, can we ask John and or Mike, what would a estimated figure for a 1 block new construction build out be for a road and the water, sewer, stormwater.
Just off the top of your head. Can you get the microphone, please?
Yeah, I didn't know if you had some, just like a template for like a one block. We used to estimate that for street construction and or street repairs.
300,000 a block. That was what it was a few years ago, and probably 10 years ago. So it's higher than that right now. And so and like I made that motion grabbing out of thin air, the video camera can't pick up on that. I don't hang my hat on that just because that's what Mike was saying. It's a loaded question. It depends
Right.
on a lot
Oh,
of things, your
yeah.
topography, the length of the block and other things like that. But that's a starting point. Okay.
So, yeah, no, and that's kind of what I'm after, 300,000 10 years ago with inflation, 560 isn't out of the ballpark. And this is not flat land, so it's going to be more expensive to put property in.
Sure, but that's a good answer to the question. Is $560,000 reasonable for this project? But another important question is who should pay the $560,000? And this plan presupposes that the right people to provide the infrastructure for 16 housing units on a dead-end road are the people of Decorah not collecting taxes. And so that we can refund it to the developer. And I question whether that's the most judicious stewardship. I mean, I wonder if would this development just simply not happen without a $47,000 per housing unit subsidy? I mean, as far as I can tell, people are, still lining up to buy houses in Decorah. I wonder if there's, I wonder if we're subsidizing activity that would happen anyway.
Well, you also are considered as low and moderate income as far as some of the units that they have, which we've attempted to get built.
Yeah, I think
Also-
that's one good thing about this, right, Mayor, that it would create $200,000+ in our LMI fund. Is that what goes, where that money goes, or?
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this development would include a low or moderate income component. It just would give us a resource to do that in the future. Is that, yeah.
correct.
Okay, we have a motion and second for setting the public hearing for October 21st.
So again, we can set the public hearing, but if we decide on further information that we don't want to have the development agreement as it's written, we'd have a public hearing, but we'd have to do it again.
Correct. For any substantial change from what's been posted, you'd have to hold a new public hearing. I'd ask for TIF council's opinion on decreasing that amount. I don't know if decreasing the amount would actually require setting a new public hearing. I mean, similar to the adoption of a plan with a not to exceed, as long as your number is coming down, I would think that would be sufficient. But I would err on setting a new public hearing for any substantial change.
Okay. Roll call.
Chisel,
Aye.
Olson,
Hi.
believe I'm at Neal,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Misselinich,
Aye.
Zittergren.
No.
Motion carried. Consider resolution establishing downtown economic development grant program. Can you give some background on that, please?
Sure. So, no substantial changes from the previous time council seen, the program. It would essentially have, excuse me. It would essentially have two types of eligible projects. One, which would include exterior work, windows, doors, brick, tuck pointing. That would have a cap of $10,000, where the city would provide reimbursement up to a third of the documented project costs. And the second eligible project would be creation restoration of upper story residential units and have a cap of $25,000, where the city would provide reimbursement up to a third of the documented project costs. Thought of both projects having a grant reimbursement of a third would be that the owner equity is 1/3. The remaining third is potentially the Chamber of Commerce revolving loan fund. And that is why the committee that evaluates that revolving loan fund would provide a recommendation to the council on whether to adopt or not. The way the program's drafted is council would establish a budgeted amount annually that's going to go towards the program. The committee would be made aware of what that amount is, and they would make recommendations of award based on that dollar amount. For example, if 50,000 is allocated to it and you have, 10 different exterior works and you're like, oh, they're all great projects. So we're going to all award all 10 of them $5,000. Or, you know what, really these 5 are the best fit. The other 5, we encourage you to apply next year, $10,000 to 5. There's flexibility there. The same conversely on the upper story residential. If the funding doesn't match the requested need, then this recommendation from the committee can deviate from the request and council can approve based on that recommendation. The anticipated application and subsequent grant agreements John's worked on, both are included in the packet as well. We talked about financing this. It can come from any number of streams as noted in the program itself. One of which is the TIF revenues off of the C3 urban renewal plan that was just approved by council. Assuming, again, that was part of the reason for increasing the area of the existing C3 district to include all of our zoning C3, so that those projects, if this grant program is funded by TIF, they have to be in the TIF district to be eligible.
Is this like a revolving, so they can just apply when needed? Or are we doing once a year? Or what do we do?
Assuming it's going to be, again, budgeted amount might not meet the initial request. I would not do a rolling application period.
okay.
So this does not include any of the businesses on College Drive, Short Street, Montgomery, Business Park.
If expanded to them or anywhere else, what might be something worth considering is a separate program outside of this one, so that, again, the C3 revenues, the TIF C3 revenues, if they're going to be used to fund this program, those projects have to be in that C3 TIF district. So I would do a separate program for those others.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution establishing the Downtown Economic Development Grant Program.
Second.
Motion made by Olson, seconded by Neal. Discussion.
How does the program plan to sort of choose the worthiness of applicants? I saw the application. I guess I can imagine the city having a higher interest in the exact same facade improvement done along our major commercial, retail corridor on Water Street or the historical blocks of Court and Winnebago than maybe in some other places in the C3. Are we able to discriminate in that way?
Mhm.
Does that question make sense?
I think so. You're generally asking, how are we going to evaluate which ones actually make sense to fund as opposed to others, if we're gonna pick and choose which ones we're funding, right?
Yeah.
So I would create a scoring matrix. The application, and again, I note that these are anticipated application and subsequent grant agreement, because even within code, we don't say this is the approved application for said program. Those vary. But I would do a scoring matrix That has not been worked out, because you want to have, based on subjective, right? No, objective, objective outcome. So, you know, score of 1 through 5 on these different criteria. I have a copy of what the city of Olwine has for a scoring matrix that, you know, I shared with John as well. I thought did a good job of considering the project as a whole, and its surrounding impact to that block, and had a nice placeholder at the very end for, how do you term it? General awesomeness, score of 1 to 5.
General laws.
Yeah. So scoring matrix, short answer. We would make it all based on numbers.
Okay, we have a motion in a second. Any further discussion?
I think that's a great program. I know staff's done a lot of hard work to lay the groundwork for it and listen to council when we've said that, you know, we're eager for seeing some of our economic incentives targeted towards the economic engine that is our downtown and our business district. And so I'm grateful for the work that we're doing. I think that this has the potential to create a really virtuous cycle. We invest more money in our downtown, that creates more buy-in in our downtown, more economic activity, more tourism dollars. That creates a bigger pot of money to reinvest. So I really think this is the beginning of something that could be really good for Decorah's future.
And maybe not the time or place for council to just jump right in with a dollar amount, but should this be approved, as I noted in the background, as well as last time when we discussed it, to start the program, we can also use hotel motel, the council contingency portion. Also in fiscal 24, was it the final quarter was substantially large? Like the final quarter was very healthy. And so that council contingency that we had budgeted around 58,000 is substantially more than that.
Great.
So, you know, that's for council's consideration.
I mean, I feel like when we set that money aside, this is exactly what we said we wanted to do with that money. And that's really exciting. So I'm excited by that.
Roll call.
Olson,
Aye.
Neal,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
Miscelinich,
Aye.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Chisel.
No.
Consider resolution stating public purpose for electricity use for Live on Winnebago.
The city staff has received a request from the organizers of Live on Winnebago to tap into the city's electrical panel to run the equipment for the bands. The organizers are willing to pay for the different costs associated with the connection and, you know, subsequent disconnect. But since it's behind the meter of multiple, you know, streetlights and things, we're not able to also bill them for the electricity use. So in order for the city to comply that it's not, or to comply that it is a public use of funds, the proposed resolution acknowledges the public benefit and that the city is willing to absorb the cost of the electricity itself.
This is in line with other groups that do this, correct? Like Nordic Fest?
It is. This kind of helped point out that if this is adopted, council's probably going to see another one very similar to this for Nordic Fest.
I move the
How much-
resolution.
I second.
How much are we talking? I mean,
Just
ballpark.
I mean, $1.
Yeah, exactly.
I seriously can't imagine it's
Right,
going to be
right,
much.
Right, that's right.
But
Okay.
we
Okay.
have,
Hookup
we
costs
have
are gonna
to
be
state
more
the
than what
public
we'd make.
purpose.
Who made the motion, please?
I did.
Who seconded?
I did.
Okay, motion made by Zittergruen, seconded by Neal. We did have just had discussion.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but we're just trying to comply with the public purpose of public funds. And
Right.
so,
Right.
That's how I wanted to clarify how much.
yeah, we're talking dollars.
Minimal.
Okay, roll call.
Zittergruen.
Aye.
Neal.
Aye.
Miscelinich.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Chisel.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Motion carried. Consider an ordinance amending section 10.52.090 of the Decorah Municipal Code regarding school zones, first reading.
So this code
This is
section,
Interesting.
yeah, it's, well, we might find it interesting, others might sleep, but it is interesting. This code section refers to the temporary stop signs that we roll out in the school zones at various crosswalks within town. The way current code section 1052.090 reads is that it requires vehicles stop at these temporary stop signs, but then can proceed with caution when no pedestrians are in the crosswalk. I do believe the intent was again just to create additional stop intersections of crosswalks. But we do have one in particular with the intersection of River and Vernon that when this goes up, that creates a four-way stop sign essentially. But the way code reads is if you're stopping at the temporary sign, as long as nobody's in the crosswalk, you have the right of way. So to eliminate confusion and arguably put code in line with the way practice is, most people acknowledge that it's a four-way stop. And so this would, the proposed ordinance would add the sentence that a person stopped at the temporary stop sign would also have to yield to any other vehicle that would have the right of way. So they've already stopped and now it's their turn to go. They go and you have to wait for them.
Just like you would at any other four-way stop.
Correct.
I move the resolution.
Second.
I move the ordinance, I should say.
Second.
Motion made by Zittergruen, seconded by Olson. Any further discussion?
Given that this is pro forma and obvious, I think that we ought to waive and move on with this one. So we don't have to come back over and over, but that's
Agreed.
up to Randy because he's the one who makes that motion always.
All right, discussion is over. Roll call? Roll call.
Zittergruen?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Ms. Linich?
Aye.
Chisel?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
I would move to waive the second and third readings because this is more of a safety issue.
Second.
Common
Motion-
sense.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Olson. Zittergruen, thank you. To waive the
Waive
second and third
adopt.
and adopt. Thank you, Randy.
Forgot that last part.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Chisel?
Aye.
Zittergruen?
Aye.
Olson?
Aye.
Neal?
Aye.
Parker?
Aye.
Ms. Linich?
Aye.
Thank you. Approve C3 design Coriana at 207 West Water Street. I think there's
Okay.
pictures in your packet on it.
Correct. City Code section states historic preservation reviews the C3 application, provides an advisory recommendation to P and Z. And then P and Z has to review the application for conformity, the regulations and standards of chapter 1504, and either approve or disapprove in the application. The application submitted by Coriana is for the replacement of 6 upper story wood double hung windows with new vinyl windows with black on the exterior and interior. Windows are egress, double hung with a fixed transom on top. Historic Preservation has reviewed the application and endorsed the project. P and Z Commission has also recommended approval.
I'd move to approve.
Motion made by Chisel, seconded by Zittergruen to approve. Any further discussion? I'm only going to make a comment about that block. By the time that block gets done, and then with the new building on the corner, you go around the corner, you look where Lester's are, all that whole block is starting to take on a different look in a positive way. It's just a comment. Roll call?
Jizzle.
Aye.
Zittergren.
Aye.
Neil.
Aye.
Parker.
Aye.
Ms. Linich.
Aye.
Olson.
Aye.
Motion carried. Discussion on noise control ordinance. There's no action on this, but discussion.
Yes, so John, thank you, John, for working so hard on this, taking a Des Moines ordinance and trying to Decorify it is extremely difficult. But John has worked to do that. So we didn't know that we were quite ready for a first reading and wanted to present to council what's been drafted so far. There are two sections that are included that have strike through in black, but not redlined, because we're not removing anything. But there are two sections that have black strike through, because we're not sure that it's where council's at or not, but it's been discussed. So we put it in there, so it could be or not. The first one would be a permit for outdoor sound amplification would require the applicant have a noise meter on site. So it's in there, but we didn't know if the true decorification process would be still leave it in there or take it out. That was one area I want to point out. The second one is the discussion that's been had on trash removal. If trash removal operations start before 6 a.m. or not. We had heard that brought up in discussion, but don't know that that's where the majority of council lies. So that's why it's, again, drafted and in there, but does have a strike through on that section so that council can say leave it in or don't.
I guess I had a question of John, in reference to the trash stuff. If you look at 935.028 C, where it says loading and unloading, no person shall load, unload, open, close, or handle boxes, crates, container, building material, garbage cans, or similar hours between hours of 10 and 6. Would that pertain to trash removal as well? Or is, I know, I think I know what your intention is there,
Yeah.
but would that also include like trash pickup?
I think it would. And again, this is from using the Des Moines code as a model. So having that in there, plus what we have the strike through,
Right,
they are complementary.
right.
But if you then take out that strike through, you bring up a good question, and maybe we should just delete that garbage can, so there's no question there. And then also, this made me realize when I started looking at this, I was wondering, why the heck is it under emergency signaling
Right,
devices?
Right.
And I think this was an editing oversight on my part. And I would insert where C is, I would make that A in a new section, and I would call that 9.35.030 specific activities prohibited. And then, sorry, I'm doing this kind of on the fly, but I think it would make it those paragraphs a little bit more understandable. Or so to your point, that C would, I think it would make sense to, if you do not have the prohibition on garbage trucks during those certain hours, take out that part about the garbage cans, because I think that adds confusion.
Right.
I mean, it could be read to say, well, you can't take out your garbage at that time, but I think that we should be consistent.
Right. And I was the one that brought up the garbage trucks because there had been complaints in my area for, they come about 4:10 a.m. in our area and stuff like that. So I was the one that brought that up initially. So I don't know if there's appetite with the rest of the council to pursue that or not.
Well, that's a discussion we've had off and on
Right.
as far as timeliness of what they have to pick up in other areas as well in order to be able to get all the garbage picked up in the, certain area. If this is, does this state they'd have to start picking up garbage from 6 in the morning then?
If this portion that's listed with a strike through, if that is considered and kept in there as part of council, yes. Couldn't start until 6 AM. Right.
What time do they start now?
Well, they started
Apparently 4.
four in our area.
Oh.
I did talk with Dan from Malcolm Enterprises today. I did give him a call out there. He kind of oversees the setting up of the routes and things like that. He did give me the reason for them starting at 4 is for efficiency of their routes. If they wait until 6 o'clock to get started, they're running into delivery vehicles and people leaving for work and things like that. So it puts them way behind the clock. They end up having to backtrack through different areas and things like that. So it would be somewhat problematic. Since this is a discussion item, I told him I would be willing to work with staff or talk to him to see if there's some way they could work out their routes to make it more efficient at the same time as keeping it out of those hours of say 4 to 6 AM, if that's something feasible. Cause I don't want to put them out. Cause I used to do routes for the postal service and I know how it is trying to make the routes efficient as well as make them work for the people and stuff like that.
I
Yeah, I
thought
thi-
it was like 5:30.
I feel like we would be, I feel like with that, we might, trying to fix one problem and create another one in terms of
I agree with you.
people trying to commute to work and then garbage trucks on the road.
They're on the day,
True, but they're,
7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock.
I suppose,
They want to get out of the downtown
yeah.
before delivery and traffic really starts. So they like to be down there between 4:35, get through the alleys. Because if you go through at 6:30, you're already starting to see the beer trucks and food trucks rolling into town.
And I understand the downtown, but I don't live
Right, I mean, that's.
Fairly close.
Right, but
Then
we're
they,
in re-
then they
we're in
want to get
residential
off the
areas.
main
And-
roads and get into the residentials while the traffic's coming in.
And we do look at, other noise ordinances in other cities. They have that same time restriction.
Oh, with 6?
Right, 6 or some even have 7 o'clock as their time, right?
And I do think there's kind of a weather component too, because it is a hard job and it's a needed job. And so starting early in the morning, you're not getting in the heat of a day of throwing trash cans. And, every trash company's different. I can speak to Walk-On, for example. The guy never leaves his truck, an arm comes out, grabs a can, dumps it, sets it down, and goes away. We're here in Decorah, we have people running down the streets, throwing bags. So, there's a difference on how they're collected as well, which maybe would push stuff back, but obviously that's a financial burden on the trash collectors.
Do they have a time element in Walk-On?
Not that I know of.
Yeah.
I don't believe so, no.
I would say strike the whole section on the garbage trucks because they're very efficient and they get down and barely notice them.
You don't. We do in our area at 4 o'clock in the morning. We're getting woke up, so.
Old people get up early anyway.
Okay,
5 AM.
yeah, maybe there's a
I'm saying I'm
compromise.
willing to work with staff to try to talk
I
to
mean-
them to see if that's a feasible thing for them to work out. I mean, if it's not feasible for them, I don't want to make it total hardship
Yeah.
for them either on that route.
If they're picking up trash at 4 AM in residential areas, I do think that's too early. Downtown, yes, for sure. There are places that make a lot of sense, but 4 AM in a residential area seems really early for trash pickup.
Maybe they could be more clear about and adjust somewhat as far as the downtown, if that's where the issue is.
So
And
mo-
readjust in the residential section.
And I also don't want to make it sound like the residential areas take preference over downtown because we have a lot of apartments downtown too, and those people's lives are, disrupted by getting woke up at 4 o'clock. And they do that every day through the downtown area.
Right, but I think there's an
Ours is
assumption when
different.
you move downtown that you might have that noise in general. I mean, I think if you're gonna live in an apartment downtown, you're gonna accept some noise that you wouldn't if you're living in a residential neighborhood off downtown. I guess I would like to, before we deal with that section, I guess I'd like to know more from our trash pickup folks. Like maybe we could have a conversation with them in terms of what could be arranged that would make sense there. Are we good on that section? Are we?
Yeah,
okay.
you said you were willing to take,
Yeah.
really talk. There's two of them, correct? There's one Shimmick's from Calmer. But they're from Calmer, I think.
Yeah.
But they do the same things.
And I personally have Shimmick, and I don't know what time he comes. My trash is always gone early, so I know he's pretty early as well.
Okay, so you'll,
I think they're, I think
okay.
it varies from day to day.
And then the other piece about is that what you're looking at, the noise sound level?
Well, I have a
meter?
couple, so I don't know if you just want me to throw all of my ideas out there or just the other strike through, but I don't think actually we should put the burden of figuring out sound on the people creating it in more of a complaint fashion, like we do in many things in the city, right? We have ordinances that are driven by complaints. So I'm not for suggesting that an on-site sound level meter is necessary. I think if people are complaining, we investigate it. And, you know, say, hey, we do have a sound ordinance in this town and like, so I guess I would go on the complaint and keep strike E out. But I've read through this a couple times. First of all, thank you. I mean, we need something to start with and look through. And it could be me, so just point me in the right direction. For HVAC equipment, like-
Is there a section on that?
yeah. So where, I mean,
You
I
say
think that would
no?
just apply, there's a general prohibition on sound levels. So I think it just falls in there. Does the HVAC equipment fall under 9.3526 and 0.027?
Which one is that? You're looking at?
It'd be on
Okay.
page, let's see,
I've got it. I've got it.
Yeah.
6 and 7 of your, if you're on just the ordinance, if you're in the packet,
I've got it.
you're on page 175.
so 100 page 76, page 6?
Yeah.
Okay. It wouldn't be under agricultural. But just the general sound level in R5, you're saying there. So if there's HVAC equipment that's above 60 or 50, that's where that would fall,
And those are time periods, so
right?
you could get to 60 between 6 a.m., 10 p.m., and then be restricted to 50 between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.
So I mean, I worry a little bit that that doesn't necessarily then deal with the constantly running air conditioner that you have to keep your windows closed all day long, which is sort of the impetus for this in the first place.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to the common HVAC system out there. What's the decibel level? I did a little bit of research on that and it varied anywhere from 55 to mid 80s. And I think you also have to take into consideration the size of the lot, because if it's a big lot and the HVAC is set back 25 feet, you know, the neighbors aren't gonna hear it at the same decibel if the lot setback was 5 feet, right?
Right.
So it has the potential, I don't want to say to discriminate, but it's gonna impact people differently depending upon the size of the lot as well.
Well, I think that, I mean, in some ways, isn't that the point? I mean, the idea is, so can we measure sound on the adjacent lot? And if the sound on the adjacent lot is impacted, then that is where the ordinance would take place, right? So I mean, if you've got a nice big buffer and your air conditioner is louder, as opposed to living right next to somebody, you might have to rethink where you put that air conditioner.
And that's where these decibel limits would be calculated at, right, John?
Correct.
At the adjacent property line.
Right.
only for periods of time. So, you know, I can see you turning down your air off at night. But again, during the day, a person can't open their windows without hearing.
Well, and that's where that 50 or 60 can go up or down.
I'll make my other comment, and that is about the musical instruments. I roll to it.
Quickly on the air conditioning stuff, does that differentiate if you got residential right up to commercial? Because commercial usually has a larger unit that is noisier. How would you differentiate that? Because they've got bigger area to keep cool.
I think I'd have to go through here again. I thought that there was a provision in here if it's within so many feet of a residential district. I'd have to get back to you on Randy on that, because I think there is something in there that a commercial property could be that's adjacent to a residential could be more severely impacted than a commercial property that is deeper within the commercial zone. So if you want to adjust that or address that, we would have to do that in here. Kind of, I'm thinking about our sign ordinance. We had something regarding, I think the light of certain signs, if they were in a certain distance of a residential zone, and I would kind of compare it, the light and sound pollution in a similar way there.
Going back to the musical instruments and the noise, having it linked to noise disturbance, which has in it any sound which unreasonably disturbs a person with normal sensitivities. I don't want to create a noise ordinance where someone is outside gardening and can't play their music because their neighbor can hear it. Or I'm a little worried about the way that we currently have this worded. Someone wants to sit on their porch and play their guitar, or that seems somewhat excessive in my mind. So personally, I would take the musical instruments out of it.
Which number
Entirely.
is that?
Bottom of page 7,
Thank you,
935,035.
thank you.
Again, I mean, as long as they're not playing it after, between the hours of, 10 PM and 6 AM, sure. But right now it's written that no one could play a musical instrument or similar device throughout the day. That's how I was reading this.
We could potentially just take that out and apply the same decibel level limits for, if I'm outside gardening and I've got my radio blasting, death
That's
metal,
different.
as
That-
opposed to, yeah.
But again, it depends where your house is next to someone's property. Yeah.
Decibel level. If that exceeds a certain amount, then you want that. Randy, sorry, back to your question. I just looked in here. I was thinking of something else. There is not any adjustment for sound based on being adjacent to a residential district. There was a provision in that crossed out section regarding garbage trucks that had something to do with that, but yeah. So I think if you were commercial property adjacent to a residential property and the residential property made a complaint about the commercial property is evaluated based upon what's the decibel level for commercial. So in that case, I think the impact is more negative on the residential property. If that,
Would that then require the title for 935,027 to be changed? It says by receiving land use.
yeah, by receiving land use. Yeah, I think that I think it just needs to be clarified more about that, because yeah, the way that we have the caption, I don't know how you would, it says maximum permissible sound levels by receiving land use. And that's kind of hard for the person that's on a commercial property to gauge how people on all residential properties hear it. I would think that would be kind of I think that would be difficult.
Penalizing the business again.
Yeah, I mean, one way or another, or I mean, the reverse, somebody could say if we did it the other way, it's penalizing the residential, but it goes both ways. It's just who you want to have the burden.
The burden should be, if a commercial business is building near residential, I do think the burden on them to put up a sound wall should be there. I mean,
Well, that's new construction. I'm talking existing, so.
Yeah.
Bitching about it now.
I think that's what you're meant, Stanley, like existing commercial business, I think, or whatever, they just put up walls.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
I don't know, I'm just questioning again, if this is gonna get at what at least my purpose of bringing up a noise ordinance was, which is really about as we scale back lot sizes, making sure HVAC equipment that abuts your neighbors is either barricade, or, there's some kind of sound protection there, or you're allocating your outside air conditioner units not next to someone else. And I don't know that I'm quite feeling that in this.
If I may ask, so it's the sound off the HVAC, right?
Mhm.
So is it matter if it's HVAC equipment making that sound or some other device?
No, it's just that many things are one-offs, right? HVAC equipment runs all day, all night. So the complaints we've gotten are from residents where HVAC equipment is running all day, all night. And that is where your house becomes a place where you can't open your windows. It's not someone driving by, screaming on their bike, or it's not even someone's dog barking who eventually stops, right? I mean, a dog barking all day, we would deal with that, but HVAC equipment that runs all day, all night next to a house is, that's problematic. And I don't feel like, I get that it's sort of embedded in here, but then there's a lot of other things that I feel like have some unintended consequences that I'm a little worried about.
Systems become less efficient if you put walls up around them. You gotta have.
No, I get that. I mean, the two incidences, there's now been three, but the two incidences that I'm thinking of, right? One was the homeowner actually had a choice between putting their HVAC system right next to their house or putting it in their back of their house, and they didn't put it in the back of their house. And then the other was the school. Again, the school could have put up a sound barrier because that was upsetting more than one neighbor, but
I think Casey's was. an
Casey's
issue.
was another one, right? I mean,
I think it's hard to solve every little real world problem with ordinance writing. I mean, I think this gets into why I think they say in law school that hard cases makes for bad law. And if we contort ourselves to write an ordinance that deals with every single person who's got an unfortunate noise situation in our community, we're going to end up with an overbroad and not really enforceable ordinance. So I guess when I look at this kind of from the 10,000 feet view, I see us adding a tool into the toolkit of our enforcement community, the building code and the police department, to deal with the truly egregious, the truly disruptive noises, the sort of, we're an agricultural community. Sometimes trucks go by, that's fine. No one really cares. That's good. But there are also occasionally people, the minority, the very small percentage of people who go out with the intention of making really loud noises and being disruptive with their vehicles. And I'd like to be able to distinguish between one and the other. And I think this gives our enforcement community a tool to do that. And Emily, I'm sitting here scratching my head trying to figure out like how we also use this for the deeply unpleasant or the unfortunate that, you live close in proximity to a neighbor who has a poorly maintained air conditioner. That is tough. And I worry that any attempt to try to sort of ensure that we write this code such that no one has that nothing falls through the holes or nothing's missed, I think we'd end up with something way too broad.
Well, some of the instances we're talking about have been like not isolated incidents, but you know, like one or two or three versus setting up a whole listing of which can do too.
I'll just put this out there since these are more basic ones. I'd like to see an exception for public address because I didn't see one. The police or the football. There is a carve out in there saying if the council determines something is ordinary, it doesn't fall under the purview of this rule, but it might be useful to just say sport event, public address are exempt, crowd noises. And the other exception would be live music taking place during a permitted festival. Right now it says it has to be government sponsored, but sometimes live music is not sponsored by the government. It's simply, we permit Nordic Fest. So I feel like those are two places that the ordinance could make it clear we're fine with bands at Nordic Fest. We're fine with the football announcer celebrating a touchdown.
Steve, so like the Nordic Fest, could that be tied to a special event application somehow?
Yeah, I mean, am I right that this draft ordinance sort of establishes a noise permit too? Like you can would it be better just to say we're going to have live music at our special event, check a box, and then that is exempt from the noise ordinance?
Something along those lines.
That might be
But
simpler than a whole new permit.
But that could be in the special exception or there's a special event application. Are you asking for a noise permit, basically? Yeah, a box to check in there, and then, I don't know, we'd have to have some information they give us about it.
As long as you don't have to pay for it.
Hmm.
Like, I don't want it to be an extra fee that they have to pay for a noise.
I just think, yeah, the more that we can get everything under the special event, it seems like that's better than having a special event permit, a noise permit, and a food truck permit. Like these are all kind of special events and they should maybe all be under the same umbrella. So I think that might be better.
So you'd probably still want the code section itself in there, but just the actual permit is the special event application. The permit's issued through that.
And I'm thinking, unless you can think of any other type of event that when,
What about if someone has a wedding in their backyard? Or some kind of event in their backyard, so noise in the afternoon. If they have a party.
I'm thinking that kind of a private function where a special event is typically open to the public.
My
No, no,
kids are going to exceed those decibel levels on a daily basis.
It's like, we get some very crotchety people. And I just don't want people being like, my neighbors are having a party next door and I want that shut down. And, we go over there and it's like 75 decibels.
That is what we do, actually. You got a rambunctious house party, somebody calls. If PD shows up and they deem it a nuisance, they turn it down.
And in some ways, this provides a more objective tool for saying you're violating the public's, the standards we've established. And I don't know, I think it takes a little bit of the onus off of the police to say, well, is this really a problem or not? Here, okay, got noise meter.
So
You're at-
what is the average noise of a 5-year-old birthday party? That's what I really want to know. What's the decibels on a 5-year-old's birthday party?
Well, if we set the limit to that, we're not having any nuisance.
After how much cake and ice cream?
Exactly.
Or any birthday party.
Well, it's open for discussion.
I think the other thing that we ought to remember is that, we should pass the best version of this that we can. I think it'd be good to have a noise ordinance so that, we can enforce against the truly egregious small minority of people who are disruptive to everyone's general use and health of the community. But if we miss something, it's amendable. And I think we need to remember that if there's a huge problem with something that comes up again, we fix it.
So do you want to give Travis or just send Travis certain pieces that you shouldn't be in? How do you want to work or give guidance to the staff as far as this document is concerned?
Well, I think Kirsten will help work with the
Garbage.
garbage providers and see about that. I think we take out the noise thing that a person has to have and take out the musical instrument. And it can just fall under the regular.
You got that?
Yep.
Okay. And you want to bring it back for us to look at again?
Probably bring it back as another discussion.
I'd
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
I think that'd be a good idea. Okay. We have an opening on Decorah Human Rights Commission. I take it you have not had any applications in for anything? Let's see, city manager,
Just a general reminder of council next week, work session 5:45 to discuss Hively Street in particular and the expected project for next fiscal year, as well as excuse me, as well as the downtown parking discussion. Again, next week, Monday, 5:45. I will not be in attendance. As a reminder, I will be at the ICMA Annual Conference in Pittsburgh. Also will be attending the Iowa League of Cities Annual Conference this week. Bless you. Just unfortunate that the timing of them are that they're back to back. So I'll get back in town late Friday and fly out Saturday morning.
okay? Carrie? Let's see. Brent,
No, I don't have anything tonight, Mayor.
are you sure? Okay, Christopher,
Nothing tonight.
Kirsten?
Nothing tonight either.
I did do a proclamation today for Constitution Week. I do this every year. Whereas September 17th, 2024 marks the 237th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution for the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention. You can see that in your Dropbox. Steve,
Nothing.
Randy,
Nothing.
Emily. Okay, anything else? Okay, so move.